The stars above Villani Prime burned with the light of dying ships. Dr. Yoon Sora pressed her face against the observation deck window, watching another transport vessel explode in a bright flash of orange flame. The Crover Empire had been hunting her people for 3 months now, and there was nowhere left to run. Another colony ship destroyed, whispered her assistant, a young technician named Kim Do-hyun. His hand shook as he read the scanner data. That's the last group trying to escape from Villani 4. Yoon closed her eyes and took a deep breath. As the chief communications officer for what remained of the Villani government, she carried the weight of an entire species on her shoulders. 6 billion Villani had lived across 12 worlds just 1 year ago. Now fewer than 200 million remained, crowded onto their dying homeworld. The Crovar had a simple philosophy: kill everything that wasn't Crovar. They moved from system to system like a plague of metal and fire, destroying every trace of the civilizations they found. No negotiations, no mercy. No survivors left behind to tell stories. Keep scanning, Yoon told Kim. There has to be someone out there who can help us. For weeks, she had been pointing their massive communication arrays at distant stars, searching for any sign of advanced technology. The Villani had always been a peaceful people, more interested in art and science than weapons of war. Their small defense fleet had lasted exactly 4 hours against the Crovar invasion force. Kim's scanner suddenly beeped with excitement. Dr. Yoon, I'm picking up massive energy signatures from a system about 40 light-years away. The readings are incredible. Yoon rushed to a station and looked at the data streaming across the screen. Her eyes widened. The energy output from the third planet in that distant system was enormous, bigger than anything the Villani had ever achieved. Thousands of separate power sources covered the planet's surface, each one producing enough energy to power a small city. Look at this communication traffic, Kim said, his voice filled with wonder. They're broadcasting on hundreds of different frequencies. The complexity is amazing. This has to be a highly advanced civilization. The signals coming from the distant world were chaotic and overlapping, but that only proved how sophisticated they were. Only a truly advanced species could coordinate so many different communication channels at once. The electromagnetic spectrum around their planet hummed with activity. They must have incredible technology, Yoon whispered. Look at all those orbital structures. What she was seeing on the scanners looked like thousands of objects moving around the planet in precise patterns. To her, it appeared to be evidence of massive space, stations and orbital platforms. The kind of mega engineering projects that only the most advanced civilizations could build. She didn't know she was looking at weather, satellites, and space junk. The door to the communication center slid open, and Elder Choi Myung-hwan entered. His blue skin had turned pale with stress, and his usually perfect ceremonial robes were wrinkled and stained. As one of the last surviving government leaders, he had aged 10 years in the past month. Any progress? He asked quietly. We found them, Yoon said, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. An advanced civilization 40 light-years away. Their technology is incredible, far beyond anything we've ever seen. Choi moved closer to study the data. His large eyes reflected the glow of the scanner displays as he tried to understand what he was seeing. Can we contact them? I think so. Their communication systems are so sophisticated that they should be able to understand any message we send. If anyone in the galaxy can help us, it's them. Another explosion lit up the sky outside. The Crovar fleet was getting closer to the planet's surface, systematically destroying the orbital defense platforms that the Villani had built over centuries. Each flash of light meant more of their people were dead. How long do we have? Yoon asked. Maybe 2 days before they begin the surface bombardment, Choi replied. After that. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Yoon turned back to her controls with new determination. Her fingers flew over the communication panel as she composed a message that would either save her people or serve as their final words to the universe. Begin transmission, she told Kim. The massive communication dish on the roof of their building slowly turned toward the distant star system. For a moment, the lights in the room dimmed as enormous amounts of power flowed through the broadcasting equipment. To the noble beings of the third planet, Yoon began, speaking clearly into the microphone. We are the Villani people of the Kepler 442 system. Our civilization is dying. A ruthless empire called the Crovar is hunting us across the stars, destroying our worlds one by one. She paused, watching another ship explode in the distance. "We have detected your advanced technology and peaceful civilization. We know you are far beyond us in science and wisdom. We beg you for help. We offer everything we have, our art, our science, our greatest treasures, in exchange for sanctuary for our people." Kim monitored the transmission strength, making sure the signal would be strong enough to reach across the 40 light-years of empty space. The message would take 40 years to arrive, but their quantum communication boosters would compress the signal and send it through subspace, reducing the travel time to just a few hours. "Please," Yoon continued, tears running down her blue cheeks. "If your people have any compassion, any mercy in your hearts, help us. We are a peaceful species. We have never harmed anyone. We just want to survive." The transmission ended and the room fell silent except for the distant rumble of explosions. They had done everything they could. Now they could only wait and hope that somewhere among the stars, someone was listening. Elder Choi placed a gentle hand on Yoon's shoulder. "You did well. If there are any good people left in this galaxy, they will hear us." Outside, the Crover ships continued their methodical destruction of everything the Villani had built. But for the first time in months, Dr. Yoon Sora allowed herself to feel a tiny spark of hope. Somewhere out there, an advanced civilization had received their desperate plea for help. She had no idea that their message was already racing toward a small blue planet where the dominant species had spent most of their history finding new and creative ways to kill each other. The response, when it came, would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Kang Dae-ho was drinking his morning coffee when the message that would change everything arrived at Earth Defense Command. The steaming cup sat forgotten on his desk as he listened to the translated alien transmission for the third time. "Play it again," he told Communications Officer Nam Suho, a young man whose job had suddenly become the most important on Earth. The voice that filled the command center was soft and musical, clearly belonging to a species that had never known real war. "We are the Villani people of the Kepler 442 system. Our civilization is dying. A ruthless empire called the Crovar is hunting us across the stars, destroying our worlds one by one." Admiral Lee Tae-sung leaned back in his chair, his weathered face showing the skepticism that had kept him alive through 40 years of military service. "It could be a trap. We've only been listening to deep space for 50 years. How do we know this isn't some kind of test?" "Because they're dying," said Captain Park Hyejin from her seat at the strategy table. At 35, she was the youngest ship captain in the fleet, and her aggressive nature had earned her both respect and concern from her superiors. "You can hear it in their voice. This isn't fake." Kong studied the data that Nam had compiled about the Villani system. According to their observations, it was 40 light-years away, a 6-month journey even with humanity's fastest ships. The energy signatures coming from the system showed massive destruction in progress. "What do we know about their attackers?" Kang asked. Nam pulled up another screen. "The Crovar Empire, according to the message. We've been picking up their broadcast signals for weeks, but we thought they were just entertainment programs." The room fell silent as Nam played some of the intercepted Crovar transmissions. The alien voices spoke in harsh, guttural tones as they described their conquests. Worse than the words were the images. Orbital bombardments of populated cities, the systematic destruction of refugee ships, mass executions broadcast like sporting events. "They're filming themselves committing genocide," Park said quietly, "and broadcasting it for entertainment." Admiral Lee's face had gone pale. "How many species have they destroyed?" "Based on their broadcasts, at least 20 in the past 5 years, Nam replied. "They call it cleaning the galaxy of inferior life forms." Kang stood up and walked to the large window that looked out over Earth's orbital defense platforms. In the distance, he could see the massive shipyards where humanity had been building their fleet during the Long Peace, the 20-year period of global unity that had followed humanity's first detection of alien signals. "How quickly can we mobilize the fleet?" he asked. "Sir?" Lee looked startled. "You're actually considering this?" "I'm not considering it," Kang replied firmly. "I'm doing it." "Park, how many ships can we have ready for deep space deployment within 72 hours? Park's eyes lit up with excitement. 300 warships, sir, including 12 heavy battleships and the new carrier groups. We can also bring supply ships and medical vessels for refugee operations." "That's our entire battle fleet," Lee protested. "If this is a trap, Earth will be defenseless." Kang turned back to face his officers. His decision was already made. but he wanted them to understand why. Gentlemen, we've spent the last century preparing for the day we'd meet alien civilizations. We built these ships, trained these crews, and unified our planet around the idea that we might not be alone in the universe. He gestured toward the screen showing the dying Villani worlds. Now we find out that we're not alone, and the galaxy is full of monsters who destroy entire species for entertainment. The Villani reached out to us because they think we're an advanced, peaceful civilization. Maybe it's time we proved them right about the peaceful part. Sir? Nam interrupted. There's something else. I've been analyzing the Krovar military communications. Their technology is sophisticated, but their weapons are all energy-based. Plasma cannons, particle beams, energy shields. They've never encountered kinetic weapons or nuclear technology. Park laughed, a sound that made everyone in the room nervous. They don't know about nukes. It appears that civilized galactic warfare is conducted with energy weapons only, Nam explained. Nuclear weapons are considered too primitive and barbaric for space combat. Admiral Lee finally understood what Kang was thinking. You want to hit them with everything we've got. Full nuclear arsenal. The Krovar think they're the apex predators of the galaxy, Kang said. They've never met a species that developed weapons specifically designed to crack planets. Let's educate them. Over the next 72 hours, Earth's orbital shipyards worked around the clock. The largest military fleet in human history took shape as ships were loaded with supplies, weapons, and most importantly, nuclear warheads. Fusion missiles, antimatter torpedoes, and kinetic bombardment systems were loaded onto ships that had been designed for one purpose: to protect humanity from anything the universe could throw at them. Captain Park stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Indomitable, and watched the fleet assemble. 300 ships, each one carrying enough firepower to glass a continent. The sight would have terrified any civilized species in the galaxy. Think they'll surrender when they see us coming? Asked her weapons officer, Lieutenant Commander Bei Jin-woo. Probably not, Park replied. From what we've learned about them, the Krovar don't seem to understand the concept of surrender. They're too used to fighting species that share their limitations. Bei nodded. What limitations are those? Morality in warfare. Rules of engagement. The idea that some weapons are too terrible to use. Park's smile was cold as space. They're about to learn that humans developed our weapons on a world that was trying to kill us every single day. We don't have those limitations. The final ship joined the formation, and Admiral Kang's voice came over the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Kang. Today we begin humanity's first interstellar military operation. We're not going to conquer or colonize. We're going to save a species from extinction. The massive fleet began moving away from Earth, their fusion drives leaving brilliant trails of light across the solar system. Behind them, the planet that had given birth to the most dangerous predators in the galaxy continued its peaceful rotation, unaware that its children were about to introduce the concept of human warfare to an unsuspecting universe. The journey to Villani space would take 6 months. When they arrived, the galaxy would learn that evolution on a death world produced more than just physical adaptations. It also produced a species that considered nuclear warfare a reasonable first response to genocide. Dr. Yoon Sora had not slept in 3 days when the response finally came. She was running on stimulants and pure hope, monitoring the deep space communication arrays for any sign that their desperate message had been received. When the alien signal appeared on her screens, she almost collapsed with relief. "Elder Choi," she called out, her voice echoing through the underground bunker that now served as their communication center. They answered. The beings from the third planet, they're responding. Elder Choi Myung-hwan hurried over to her station, his ceremonial robes now replaced with practical survival gear. Around them, the bunker shook as Krovar bombardment continued to rain down on the surface of Villani Prime. They had perhaps hours before the aliens would break through their underground defenses. What do they say? Choi asked, leaning over Yoon's shoulder to look at the translation that was appearing on her screen. To the Villani people, Yoon read aloud, her voice shaking with emotion. We have received your message and understand your situation. We are assembling a fleet to provide assistance. Hold on, help is coming. Signed, Admiral Kang Dae-ho, Earth Defense Fleet. Tears ran down Yoon's blue cheeks. After months of death and destruction, someone had finally answered their call. They're coming, Elder. The humans are coming to save us. Humans, Choi repeated, testing the word. What else do they say? Yoon scrolled through the rest of the message. They're asking for tactical information about the Krovar forces. Ship numbers, weapon types, defense capabilities. They want to know everything we can tell them about our attackers. Over the following weeks, as the situation on Valani Prime grew more desperate, Yoon established regular communication with the approaching human fleet. The conversations were fascinating and strange. The humans seemed incredibly organized and professional, with a military structure that impressed even Elder Choi, but there were things about their communications that puzzled her. Dr. Yoon, came the voice of communications. Officer Nam Suho through the subspace link. Can you provide more details about Krovar ship armor? Our targeting systems need to know the optimal yield for maximum effectiveness. Yield? Yoon asked. I'm not familiar with that term in relation to weapons. There was a pause. Sorry, I meant the power output of our warheads. We need to calculate how much force will be required to penetrate their defenses. Yoon frowned. Warheads? The humans seem to use very strange terminology for their energy weapons. The Krovar ships have standard plasma shielding, she explained. Their armor can withstand most particle beam attacks, but sustained bombardment will eventually overload their defensive systems. Understood. What about radiation shielding? Radiation? Yoon was confused. Why would you need to know about radiation shielding? Are you planning to attack their power cores? Another pause, longer this time. Something like that. Thank you for the information. As the weeks passed, Yoon noticed more strange references in the human communications. They talked about fallout zones and acceptable casualty radii, and something called nuclear winter effects. When she asked for clarification, the humans always gave vague answers about advanced tactical considerations. The strangest conversation came when she was speaking with Captain Park Hyejin, the commander of one of their warships. Captain Park, Yoon said during one of their regular updates, I wanted to thank your people again for coming to help us. Your civilization must be very peaceful and advanced to risk so much for strangers. Peaceful? Park's laugh sounded odd through the communication system. I suppose that depends on how you define peaceful. We haven't had a major war on our homeworld for almost 30 years now. 30 years seems like a very long time, Yoon replied. It's actually a record for us. Before that, we were usually fighting somebody every few years. But don't worry, we learned a lot from all that practice. Practice? Yoon felt a chill that had nothing to do with the failing heating systems in their bunker. Captain, may I ask what kind of weapons your people typically use in warfare? Oh, the usual stuff. Nuclear missiles, kinetic bombardment systems, antimatter warheads, chemical weapons, biological weapons. We're pretty adaptable when it comes to killing things. The communication link went quiet for a long moment. Yoon stared at her screen, trying to process what she had just heard. Nuclear weapons? Antimatter? These weren't the tools of a peaceful, advanced civilization. These were the weapons of Dr. Yoon? Park's voice came through the speakers. Are you still there? Yes, I'm here, Yoon managed to say. Captain, what kind of world do you come from? Earth? It's a pretty standard terrestrial planet. High gravity, toxic atmosphere in some regions, extreme weather patterns, lots of radiation, plenty of dangerous wildlife. Nothing too unusual. Yoon's hands began to shake. High gravity meant the humans were physically much stronger than any Valani. Toxic atmosphere tolerance meant they could survive in environments that would kill her people instantly. Radiation resistance was a trait found only in species from the most dangerous death worlds. Captain, she said quietly, what do your people call planets like yours? Well, the scientific term is Class 12 Death World, but we just call it home. Why do you ask? The communication link disconnected, leaving Yoon alone with the horrifying realization of what she had done. She had sent a distress call across the galaxy, desperately hoping to contact an advanced, peaceful civilization. Instead, she had contacted a species of apex predators from one of the most dangerous planets in the universe. Elder Choi found her an hour later, sitting in the dark and staring at her blank communication screen. Yoon, what's wrong? Have we lost contact with the humans? Elder, she said slowly, I need to tell you something about our rescuers. They're not what we thought they were. What do you mean? Yoon took a deep breath. The humans aren't a peaceful, advanced civilization. They're Deathworlders, apex predators from a planet that makes the Krovar homeworld look like a garden paradise. And they're coming here with enough nuclear weapons to crack moons. Choi sat down heavily in the chair next to her. Are you certain? Completely. We didn't call for help from gentle scholars, Elder. We called for help from the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and they answered. Above them, the bombardment continued as the Krovar fleet prepared for their final assault on Volani Prime. But now Yoon found herself wondering which was more terrifying, the aliens who wanted to exterminate her people, or the aliens who were coming to save them. In 3 days she would have her answer. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Volani system like a swarm of metal predators. Admiral Kang Dae-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the tactical display that showed the complete destruction of an entire civilization. 12 worlds, all burning. Orbital habitats reduced to glowing debris, the scattered remains of refugee ships drifting cold and lifeless through space. And there, closing in on the last inhabited planet, was the largest military fleet Kang had ever seen outside of Earth's own defenses. Krovar fleet composition, reported Lieutenant Commander Bei Jin-woo from his tactical station. 437 warships, including 12 massive dreadnoughts. They're currently in formation around Volani Prime, conducting systematic orbital bombardment. Captain Park Hyejin's voice crackled over the communication system from her ship, the UES Indomitable. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy discharges from the planet's surface. The Krovar are burning entire continents. Kang felt the familiar cold rage that had made him one of Earth's most effective military commanders. He had seen genocide before in humanity's own bloody history, but watching it happen to innocent aliens filled him with a fury that burned like ice in his chest. Open a communication channel to the Krovar fleet, he ordered. All frequencies. The bridge fell silent as Kang stepped forward to address the aliens who had spent months murdering their way across the Volani worlds. Krovar fleet, this is Admiral Kang Dae-ho of the Earth Defense Force. You are hereby ordered to cease all hostile actions against the Volani people and withdraw from this system immediately. This is your only warning. The response came quickly, transmitted in the harsh guttural language that the human computers had learned to translate from captured Krovar communications. Unknown aliens, came the reply from Krovar Commander Thexval. You are interfering with a lawful cleansing operation. The Volani are an inferior species marked for extinction. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed with them. Sir, reported Communications Officer Nam Soo-ho, the Krovar commander is laughing. He's broadcasting our message to his entire fleet as entertainment. Kang's expression didn't change, but everyone on the bridge could feel the temperature drop. Captain Park, are your weapons ready? All nuclear systems armed and targeted, sir. Just give the word. Bei, what's the status of their defensive positions? Interesting, sir. They're using pure energy shielding. No physical armor to speak of. Their ships are beautiful, but they look like they were designed more for intimidation than actual combat. Kang nodded. The Krovar ships were indeed impressive to look at. Sleek, elegant vessels covered in glowing energy fields and decorative armor that served no real defensive purpose. They had clearly been built by a species that had never encountered real opposition. All ships, Kang announced over the fleet communication system. The Krovar have declined our generous offer to leave peacefully. Let's show them why that was a mistake. Begin Operation Deathworld. The Krovar fleet reacted immediately to the approaching human ships. 400 energy cannons opened fire simultaneously, filling space with brilliant plasma beams and particle streams. The display was magnificent, a light show of deadly energy that could have sterilized a planet's surface. The humans watched with interest as the Krovar weapons struck their ships. The energy beams splashed harmlessly against armor plating that had been designed to withstand nuclear explosions. The particle streams were absorbed by defensive systems built to operate in the radiation-soaked environment around Earth's industrial stations. Damage report, Kang requested calmly. Minor scoring on the outer hull of 3 ships, Bei reported. No penetration. It's like they're throwing flashlights at us. Commander Thexval's confident voice suddenly turned uncertain as he broadcast to his fleet. Increase power to all weapons. These primitives have some kind of crude shielding technology. The Krovar ships redirected all available power to their weapon systems, creating energy beams 3 times as powerful as their initial barrage. The result was the same. The human ships continued their steady approach without even slowing down. Admiral, Park's voice carried a note of predatory satisfaction. Request permission to return fire. Granted. Show them what civilized warfare looks like. The human response was nothing like the elegant energy weapons of the Krovar. Instead of beams of light, the human ships launched crude metal cylinders that moved relatively slowly through space. The Krovar watched in confusion as hundreds of primitive missiles approached their fleet. "Commander," one of the Krovar weapons officers reported, "the alien projectiles are moving too slowly to be effective weapons. Our point defense systems can easily intercept them." "Do so," Thexaval ordered. "Destroy their primitive attacks." The Krovar point defense systems activated, shooting down the approaching missiles with precise energy bursts. For a moment, it looked like their superior technology would triumph over human barbarism. Then the first nuclear warhead detonated. The explosion was unlike anything the Krovar had ever seen. Instead of the clean, controlled energy discharges they were familiar with, the human weapons created massive spheres of raw, destructive force. The electromagnetic pulse from the first detonation knocked out the sensors on half the Krovar fleet. "What are they using?" Thexaval screamed over the communication system as more nuclear explosions bloomed like deadly flowers throughout his formation. The Krovar shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, were completely useless against the kinetic force and radiation of thermonuclear explosions. The refined energy barriers that protected their ships from plasma cannons offered no defense against weapons that split atoms and turned matter into pure energy. Within 10 minutes, the pride of the Krovar Empire was reduced to radioactive debris drifting through space. "Sir," Bay reported with professional calm, "enemy fleet has been neutralized. We're detecting 17 survivors in escape pods. Bring them aboard for interrogation," Kang ordered. "And somebody get me a communication link to the Villani. They're probably wondering what just happened." Dr. Yoon Sora's voice came through the speakers a few minutes later, shaky with emotion. "Admiral Kang? Is that you? What was that light show? Did you defeat the Krovar?" "The immediate threat has been eliminated," Kang replied. "We're beginning search and rescue operations for any Villani survivors. Dr. Yoon, we're going to need your help coordinating refugee operations." "Of course," Yoon said, though her voice carried an odd note. "Admiral, may I ask what kind of weapons you used?" "Our sensors detected some very unusual energy signatures. Standard nuclear missiles," Kang answered matter-of-factly. "We also have antimatter torpedoes and kinetic bombardment systems, but the nukes seemed adequate for the situation." The communication link went quiet for a long moment. "Dr. Yoon? Are you still there?" "Yes, Admiral. I'm here. I was just processing that information." "You destroyed an entire fleet with nuclear weapons?" "It wasn't really much of a fleet," Park's voice interrupted from her ship. "They had pretty energy shields, but no real armor. It was like fighting soap bubbles with sledgehammers." Kang could hear other Villani voices in the background, speaking rapidly in their musical language. They sounded frightened. "Dr. Yoon," he said gently, "we know you're probably scared. We understand that our methods might seem extreme. But your people are safe now. That's what matters." "Safe," Yoon repeated quietly. "Yes, Admiral. We're safe now." As the human fleet began rescue operations around Villani Prime, word of the battle spread through the galactic communication networks. Across dozens of star systems, civilized species watched the recordings of nuclear weapons being used in space combat and felt a collective chill of terror. Somewhere in the galaxy, apex predators had just announced their presence to the universe. The radiation levels on Villani Prime would have killed most galactic species within hours. Sergeant Kim Na-eun walked through the devastated capital city, wearing nothing more than standard combat gear, checking her scanner for survivors while humming a popular Earth song. The Geiger counter on her belt clicked steadily, indicating radiation levels that were merely annoying by human standards. "Got another group of survivors here," she reported into her communication device. "Looks like about 30 Villani hiding in a subway tunnel. They're scared but healthy." Lieutenant Commander Bae Jinwoo's voice crackled back through the radiation-filled air. "Copy that, Kim. Medical team is en route. How are they handling our presence?" Kim looked down at the group of blue-skinned aliens huddled together in the tunnel entrance. Their large eyes were wide with fear, and they whispered among themselves in their musical language as they stared at her. She could understand their nervousness. To them, she probably looked like a walking tank wrapped in synthetic flesh. "They're terrified," Kim reported honestly, "but they're not running away, so that's progress." She knelt down beside the injured Villani civilians, pulling medical supplies from her pack. The aliens flinched when she approached, but desperation overcame fear as she began treating their radiation sickness with casual efficiency. "It's okay," she said softly, knowing they couldn't understand her words but hoping her tone would be reassuring. "You're safe now." One of the Villani, an elderly female with intricate tattoos covering her arms, spoke hesitantly in broken English. You are the humans?" "That's right," Kim smiled. "We're here to help. You are Deathworlders?" the alien asked, the fear clear in her voice. Kim paused in her medical work. News traveled fast, apparently. "Yes, we're from Earth. I know that probably sounds scary, but we're the good guys. We came here to save your people." The elderly Villani studied Kim's face for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "Thank you," she whispered. Above ground, the rescue operations continued under the direction of Admiral Kang Dae-ho. The human fleet had deployed medical ships, supply vessels, and thousands of personnel to help the surviving Villani. What amazed the aliens most was how casually the humans operated in conditions that should have been instantly lethal. Dr. Yoon Sora watched from the window of the makeshift command center as human soldiers worked in areas still glowing with residual radiation from the Krovar bombardment. They moved with the easy confidence of predators in their natural environment, completely unaffected by dangers that would have required the Villani to use heavy protective equipment. "Dr. Yoon," came a voice behind her. She turned to see Admiral Kang entering the room, his uniform showing no signs of the harsh conditions outside. "How are your people adapting to our presence?" "Better than I expected," Yoon admitted. "Once they realized you weren't here to hurt us, most of the fear has been replaced by curiosity. Though I think some of them are having trouble believing you're real." Kang nodded understandingly. "We know our reputation precedes us. The galaxy sees Deathworlders as monsters. Are you?" Yoon asked directly. "Monsters, I mean." It was a fair question, and Kang considered it seriously before answering. "We're predators, Dr. Yoon. Our evolution shaped us to survive on a world that tried to kill us every day. That made us very good at violence. But it also taught us something that most species never learn." "What's that?" "That being able to kill doesn't mean you have to kill. The strongest predator is the one that chooses when to show mercy." Their conversation was interrupted by Elder Choi Myung-hwan, who entered the command center with urgent news. "Admiral, we've received intelligence from the Krovar prisoners you captured. The situation is worse than we thought." Kang turned his attention to the elderly Villani leader. "What did they tell you?" "The Krovar Empire spans 47 star systems. They've destroyed over 200 species in the past century, and according to their records, they're planning to expand their operations into 3 new sectors within the next year." "How many potential victims are we talking about?" Kang asked. "Billions," Choi replied grimly. "Entire civilizations that don't even know the Krovar exist." Yet, Yoon saw something change in the Admiral's expression. A hardening that reminded her that, beneath his diplomatic exterior, was a predator from a death world. "Dr. Yoon, I need to ask you something important. Do your people want our protection?" "What do you mean?" "The Krovar will be back. When they realize what happened here, they'll send a larger fleet to finish what they started. We can try to evacuate all the survivors to somewhere safe, or we can stay and make sure this never happens again." Yoon looked out the window again at the human soldiers helping her people. Despite their fearsome reputation, these Deathworlders had traveled 40 light-years to save a species they had never met. "What would staying mean?" "It means Earth formally extends protection to the Villani people. It means human ships patrol your space and human weapons defend your worlds. It means that anyone who wants to hurt your people has to go through us first." The weight of the decision was enormous. Accepting protection from Deathworlders would change everything about Villani society. But the alternative was extinction. "There's something else," Kang continued. "The Krovar aren't the only predator species in the galaxy. Our intelligence suggests there are at least 6 other empires conducting similar operations against peaceful civilizations. The universe is full of monsters, Dr. Yoon. The question is, do you want the monsters on your side?" Before Yoon could answer, Communications Officer Nam Suho burst into the room. "Admiral, we're receiving distress calls from 3 separate star systems. The Krovar are attacking refugee convoys trying to escape to neutral space." Kang's expression went cold. "How many ships?" "Unknown, sir. But the attacks are happening simultaneously across multiple sectors. It looks like a coordinated campaign to prevent anyone from escaping their expansion zones." Captain Park's voice came over the communication system from her ship in orbit. Admiral, request permission to investigate the distress calls. The Indomitable and 6 destroyers can be ready to move in 10 minutes. Granted, Kang replied immediately. Take whatever force you need. No survivors of genocide on our watch. As Park's ships departed to aid the new victims, Yoon realized she was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. The Deathworlders weren't just defending their new allies. They were actively hunting down predator species throughout the galaxy. Admiral, she said quietly, I think I can speak for my people when I say we accept Earth's protection. But I have to ask, what does this mean for the rest of the galaxy? Kang looked out at the human rescue teams working tirelessly to save Volani civilians, then at the display showing Captain Park's ships racing toward another species in need of help. It means the age of easy prey is over, he said simply. The galaxy has apex predators now, and we choose to hunt the hunters. Elder Choi stepped forward with formal dignity. Then on behalf of the Volani people, I officially request that Earth establish the first interstellar protection compact in galactic history. Granted, Kang replied. Welcome to the Human Protection Zone. Population 6 billion Volani, 8 billion humans and growing. Outside, Sergeant Kim helped another group of survivors onto a medical transport, completely unaware that she was participating in a moment that would reshape the balance of power across the galaxy. She was just doing her job, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. It was the most human thing imaginable.